All right, let's start with our top story today, which is sort of putting India back in focus. India has solidified its position as a global fintech giant, leading the world when it comes to the sheer volume of UPI payments. Now, with the success of UPI, India seems to be almost on the cusp of yet another financial revolution, with the introduction of ULI, or the Unified Lending Interface. This was announced by the RBI governor not very long ago.
What is ULI and what are the promises it brings with it? ULI promises to make loans more accessible to millions and millions of Indians. It will democratize the credit process and it will empower businesses and individuals. At least that's the hope. Now, as we look ahead into the future of digital finance in India, we thought here on TBC it's crucial to understand the landscape in its entirety and the different innovations that are driving it. That's why today on The Breakfast Club, we're diving deep into this transformative moment in Indian fintech.
And we've got some very interesting voices to speak to us on the program today. Joining us are three people who've been at the forefront of this revolution and who recently also attended the Global Fintech Fest 2024, which was the hub of all things new, all things tech and finance that's really going to unfold in the country. First up, we've got Rajat Gulati. He's the co-founder of Plutus One Fintech. His company does something very exciting. He's deeply involved in the Bharat bill payment system. His company also has partnership with major players like UPI, RuPay, etc. We also have with us Ankush Sabarwal, founder of CoRover.ai. Ankush is doing something very fascinating. His company actually is changing the game when it comes to voice-enabled UPI payments. Think about that.
And Ankush will be joining us in a few minutes. We also on the screen right now have with us Gaurav Jindal. He's the MD of QuickTouch. And we'll tell you guys a little bit more about what it is that QuickTouch does, because it's an IT firm. It's focused on cyber security and also payment gateways. Remember, cyber security, this entire data system and how to protect it, that's a big question, even with the Unified Lending Interface. We'll take a little bit of a deeper dive into this entire story right now. Let's go over to our guests. First, let's just go over to Rajat to understand. Rajat, just tell us, we want to come over to you to understand. First, let's go to basic reactions from you. Tell us what your thoughts are around this new initiative and tell us, as someone who's very, very familiar with the entire ecosystem around payments, I just want to understand, what are the key flags and how do you see the government looking to answer each of what could be red flags, data breaches, for example, in something like this?
Super. Thanks, Toya. Well, we see this as yet another milestone in the government's plan to be able to take financial inclusion and digital financial inclusion to every last Indian. We built a lot of this is built on top of the India stack, and a lot of the work that has been done prior has been leading up to this. And I'm sure there's a lot more innovation coming in. But what they've really done at this point is to say that for most Indians, there isn't actually a heavy paper trail for a credit giver, for an issuer, to be able to assess their credit worthiness, right? When it comes to large credit, a lot of us need to have credit scores, and those credit scores are based on macro transactions like large loans that we've taken and our repayment schedules there. But the largest demand for credit is actually at sizes and from people where paper trails don't exist, right? You can't basically judge what somebody needs if somebody's asking for, say, 5,000 rupees in credit to be able to pay for insurance right now, or to be able to take any other service, or for a farmer to be able to ask for credit during the off season when they're not getting money from their crops, or for MSMEs to unlock their invoicing value. At those points, there just isn't enough data to be able to give out credit, especially from very conservative institutions like most of our banks have been thus far. So what the ULI does is open up access to other sources of data that can help a credit issuer decide the credit worthiness of the applicant. Now, some of this could be basic stuff like GST, which has already been digitized. Some of this could be land records for farmers and other landowners. For MSMEs, this could be access to their invoicing data. And a lot of things have happened in parallel. For example, at the GFF this year, within bill payments, they announced a new category of B2B payments, which would essentially be the digitization of all payments, invoices, settlements between businesses. And having banks have accessibility, visibility to those records is huge in terms of data and their ability to then assess credit worthiness. So what's actually happening is there's a lot of work happening together, and you're going to see intersections of ULI with BBPS, now Bharat Connect, B2B. So a lot of these things are happening. Clearly, some of the flags that you spoke about would actually be, number one, what is the kind of data that is being digitized that you will have access to? Because one risk that is evident is whatever gets digitized first will start getting used first to assess credit worthiness. So is that the right data at all, right? So GST, yes, absolutely great. You know what the business is doing, what their invoicing data, that's great. But if other records are being digitized, who's being left out of the digitization? What kind of data is being digitized, and what kind of data is being made available to the issuer, to the credit issuer, to make those decisions? You don't necessarily want to introduce a systemic bias where data that's available is being used when it may not be the most relevant. So those are the kind of things that are important. A lot of work is happening even here in digitizing as many sources of data as possible. So that's great. But now it comes to how that data gets aggregated, how it gets opened up, and who makes those decisions and how. So is there a transparent decision-making process? How are the partnerships that are in place for making these decisions? All of those are going to be very, very relevant going forward.
Yeah, important points over there. And from what I'm understanding is that the idea is to make it another UPI, so it has to be on a really large scale. That means there has to be a lot of involvement even in rural spaces. That seems to be the key here, the intention with which the government is going. But let me bring